Dungeon Twister Prison is a two-player strategy game from designer Christoph Bollinger and Ludicali Games.
In Dungeon Twister Prison, players control teams of adventurers who are trapped in a deadly labyrinth trying to outmaneuver their opponents in order to escape. You can play with 1 or 2 players, and it takes about an hour. There are 3 expansions: Fire and Water, Forces of Darkness, and Paladins and Dragons, each of which add new characters, new items, and new rooms.
Players begin Dungeon Twister by randomly placing the 8 room tiles face down to form a 2x4 board and placing the starting lines at either end. Each player gets 8 character tokens, 6 item tokens, and a deck of cards in their color, as well as a player screen.
4 characters go face down on your starting line. Then each player takes turns placing their other characters and their item tokens face down on the board. Now, the rooms that are closest to the starting lines can only hold 2 tokens, whereas the 4 rooms that are in the center of the board can hold 3 tokens each. Once everybody has placed their items and their character tokens, you turn over your starting characters and replace them with miniatures.
A player starts their turn by playing one of their 4 action cards face up on the table. Now these are going to stay on the table from turn to turn, and a new card is always placed on top of the previous one. If you've run out of action cards at the end of a turn, then you get all 4 of them back.
After playing an action card, you can use the number of action points it lists to take actions. It costs 1 action point to reveal a room, rotate a room, initiate combat, or move a character. Special abilities may also cost action points.
To reveal a room, a player must have a miniature next to it, and they can't be blocked by a wall or a closed portcullis. So the active player flips over the room tile and then places any of their opponent's character or item tokens that were in that room, and they can place them on any empty tile or rotation tile. Then their opponent can place any of the active player's tokens that were in that room, and any characters are immediately replaced by miniatures.
A miniature standing on a room's rotation gear can spend an action point to rotate the room in the direction that the arrow indicates. For 90 degrees, it takes 1 action point. For 180 degrees, it takes 2 action points, etc. Now, rooms are also matched in pairs by color, so you can choose to rotate the other room in your pair if you wish. 2 rooms can be rotated in the same turn, but you need to spend those action points separately.
Each miniature can move the number of spaces that's indicated on its base. A character can move through objects, open portcullises, rotation gears, and friendly miniatures, but cannot move diagonally or through walls, closed portcullises, or pit traps.
A miniature that moves through a square containing an object can pick it up for free. You can also drop the object that that character is carrying for free as well. If a character passes through the square of a character of the same color, then they can trade items with that character or give them an item, also without costing an action point. Items might give you a bonus in combat or help you get through a portcullis or over a pit trap.
You can also cross a pit trap by spending one of your jump cards and 1 action point. Now, some characters are going to have special abilities like flying that also let them move across pit traps, or they might give them other movement bonuses, change how they deal with combat, or other special abilities. Now, combat can only take place between adjacent miniatures. Each player chooses one of their combat cards and plays it face down, and then these are revealed simultaneously. Their values are added to the combat values on the player's miniatures, and the totals are compared.
The player with the lower score loses the fight and is wounded. Now, more than one character can take part in a fight as long as each character is adjacent to the target. So the player plays a combat card and then adds that card plus all of the character's combat bonuses together. All losing characters in a group fight are wounded. All combat cards that are played that aren't +0 combat cards are immediately discarded.
Wounded miniatures are removed from the board and are replaced with a character token. They can't take any actions, and their combat score is 0. They also can't move except by being carried like an object by a friendly character. Now, you can't attack a character that's been wounded on the same turn, but if a wounded character is defeated twice, they're removed from the board permanently, and the player that defeated them gets 1 victory point.
A player also gets a victory point by moving one of their characters across their opponent's starting line, effectively removing that character from the labyrinth. Now, the first player who gets to 5 victory points is the winner.
Dungeon Twister Prison also comes with rules and a full set of components for solo play.
Dungeon Twister is a fantastic game. Definitely one of my favorite games to play. I've always really enjoyed it. Now, it's got a really excellent mix of deduction, so you're trying to figure out what the other player's doing, what kind of cards they have in their hands, what characters they've chosen, as well as real strategy and spatial reasoning, which can be a challenge for some people. One negative to this game is if you want to learn this game, and I encourage you to learn this game, the rule book really isn't laid out very well at all. So you are going to have to really carefully work your way through that if you're going to pull out the rules you need to enjoy this game well. It's a good thing you're here watching this video.
Now, another thing that might make Dungeon Twister challenging for new players is that there is no luck. There's no randomness, there are no dice that are going to save you from some bad decisions. This game is going to be very hard if you're playing it against an experienced player for the first time, because there's a certain level of knowledge and experience with the game that you just need to develop before you can really get into the strategy. Once you do, you're really going to appreciate the fact that there's no luck, because it means that it really is a true one-on-one competition of skill where the only thing between you and victory is your choices and your opponent's choices. And then it makes for a very tense, very engaging, very interesting game. I also really like the thematic engagement with Dungeon Twister. In a lot of ways, it plays like an abstract. It's got no luck. It's got that kind of spatial manipulation component to it. It really can feel like a lot of more abstract games, except that it has this really deep theme layered on top of it that gives all of the characters unique, characteristics and identities. The art design is really consistent and really immersive. There's just a whole new kind of layer that's added to this that increases the engagement. Although I do have to dock it a couple points because the only female character in the entire game is in a super sexualized pose and appears to be wearing a battle thong. Come on, guys. It does kind of feed into the slightly pulpy / slightly old school fantasy feel of the game, and if you can get past that, then the theme really is a positive addition to what is already a very cool strategy game.